And another thing you said also is the idea that people don't need to be focused on having a perfect lawn. And that is a huge, I know, I consider it a very successful marketing campaign, the idea that we all need perfectly green, pristine front yards and backyards. But that's very high maintenance. You're talking about trying to control weeds, you're talking about mowing it on a regular basis. People do a lot of treatment for their lawn. What would a more sustainable yard look like if you want to take away all these things that we're doing to it and just take the pressure back to something more natural? What should people consider?
These are great questions, and I get questions related to this all the time. And working with people on their lawns is something that we do a lot of because as extension agents, we're ultimately always thinking about how to protect the Chesapeake Bay and our watersheds. And when people are over applying things like fertilizers to their lawn, that all ultimately ends up in our waterways. So there's a number of things people can do. And, I'm not here to judge if somebody does want a perfectly tidy lawn, but maybe to just take some of that pressure off. So,
Mhm.
for instance, in early spring, maybe mowing slightly less to allow some of those things that might typically be considered weeds to actually grow up a little bit and bloom and support the local wildlife that way. For example, clover, Dutch white clover, that used to be in the bag of seed mix along with the grass seed. And then the trend became to get that clover out of there so that there'd be a perfectly green, uniform lawn. But that clover has a job to do. A, it supports pollinators. They love clover. But B, clover is a legume, and that legumes actually add nitrogen, so essentially are fertilizing our soil. And so having some of that clover present in your lawn will keep it healthier over time. And then the caretaker of that lawn would have to do less to keep their lawn looking nice.
True. And I know clover, I know in my yard at least, I think clover and I want to say like little violet and maybe some sort of a red nettle. Those are the
Mhm.
first things that I see bees flocking to. As soon as those start to come up, you'll start seeing more bees, and then you'll see some bunny rabbits hopping by. So again, we personally don't mow that first crop because we know it's so important to our wildlife. And clover
Yeah.
also is so much more tolerant of like the dogs running around on it, the kids running around on it. It can hang out really well.
Yeah, it's very durable. And so if you're willing to tolerate, having some of those blooming, weeds in there, it
Mhm.
can actually be a good thing, in terms of support, sustainable landscaping. It is quite a bit of effort to maintain a perfectly manicured lawn. And then especially in Virginia, we live in kind of a transition area where we don't have one really great variety of grass. We have people who either have cool season or warm season, and so
Yes.
our lawns are never looking perfect year round anyway. And so a big part of what I do is also just talk with people about that and help them understand the conditions that we're living in so that we're not constantly fighting against them, but just accepting and
Mhm.
having some tolerance um, of what things are going to look like.